Hey there, friends.
Hey!
This is Kaylee.
And Vanessa. What we're going to talk about today is how to actually have conversations about mental health. Conversations with our friends about their mental health and conversations about our own mental health. And these conversations are really hard. And that's why we should think about them as courageous conversations. Coined by our favorite person, Dr. Wendy Craig.
So the first thing we're going to be talking about is how to talk to somebody else about a mental health problem that they might be having. So we know that all you people out there are just lovely and wonderful and caring and kind, and you care so much about your friends and your family and the people in your life. So you want to be the best support for those people as you can be. But we also know that, like we talked about earlier, it can be really hard to have conversations with people if we think they're struggling with their mental health. So we're going to give you some fun examples of how to have these conversations.
The first place we should start is understanding that there's no one-size-fits-all conversation. Every person's going to be different. We have to learn how to find what fits with each person. And Kaylee's going to give us a really funny example of how that works.
Okay, so hopefully at some point in your life you have watched the video that's been floating around the internet on how sexual consent is a lot like having a cup of tea. If you haven't seen this video, we give you our permission. You can stop watching this, press pause, open a new tab in your window, find sexual consent is like a cup of tea, watch that video, and then come right back, and this will make a lot more sense. If you have seen that video, 10 points for you. Good job. You're doing your social media duty. Well done.
And the people, whoever made that video, the smartest people ever. So props to them. And thanks for helping us to understand a way we can explain mental health.
Absolutely. We love you. So, talking about mental health is a lot like having a cup of tea. That is the prime, that's like the foundation of what we're going to say right now. So, the reason that mental health is a lot like tea is because if somebody was having a bit of a hard time with mental health, you should approach having a conversation with them a lot like you would approach asking them to have tea with you. So if your friend was having a hard time with mental health, / if they were looking thirsty, what you might say to them is, hey, would you like to have a cup of tea with me? And if they respond, absolutely, I would love to have tea with you, then you should go ahead and have tea with them. Hello there, Vanessa.
But hey,
would you like some tea?
Yeah, I would love some tea.
Perfect, because I also want some tea. But if you ask your friend, hey, would you like to have a cup of tea with me? And they say, I'm not really feeling that right now, but thank you. Don't pour the tea in their face. Just leave it at that. Hey there, Vanessa. Would you like to have some tea?
Nope. I don't want any tea. No, thank you.
I will not make you drink any tea. Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Or if you say, hey, would you like to have a cup of tea with me? And they say, absolutely, I want some tea right now. And you get up and you go to your kitchen and you make the tea, you boil the water, you get the pot, you do all those things, and you come back, and by the time you're ready, the friend says, actually, I've changed my mind, I don't really want tea anymore. Don't pour the tea in their face. Just put the tea down and walk away. Walk away from the tea. Hey there, Vanessa.
Hey.
Would you like some tea?
I could have some tea.
Cool. Here's some tea.
I don't know if I really want any tea right now.
Okay, cool. Well, we can have tea later if you want.
Okay.
And the last thing you should know is that if someone does want to have tea with you, you should not assume that you know how they want their tea. So you should ask them how much sugar to put in their tea, or how much milk to put in their tea, or how they want their tea served, or if they want a snack with their tea. All of those things are good questions to ask them when making someone a cup of tea.
And so how this relates to mental health is you can bring up a conversation about mental health, and your friend might be receptive to talking about that and in a good space to talk about it. Or maybe they're not. Or they think they are and then they change their mind. And because this is not a one-size-fits-all, you have to take their lead and say, okay, that's fine, I'll check in with you later.
Absolutely.
Or I'll ask you again. Or if they do want to have that conversation, then you proceed and you start asking questions and listening.
Absolutely. And you don't assume that just because you talked to someone about their mental health a while ago, or you've had your own struggle with mental health at some point in your life, that you know exactly how everyone wants to deal with their mental health. So you have to ask them, how can I best support you with your mental health right now?
Now we have some idea of the structure of the conversation. But what are the words that we want to say? Words are really hard, really hard. So we want to give you just some examples of how to say things. when you're going to start the conversation, come up from a place of not being judgmental. Don't say, hey, you've been a really big asshole lately. What is wrong with you? Or you never come out to things. Or what?
Like, you're so lame these days. What's wrong with you?
You're so anxious and weird.
Yeah.
Probably not going to want to have, they're not going to be receptive.
They are not going to want to have tea with you.
So first, be non-judgmental. And talk about things that you've noticed. Be like, hey, I've noticed that you seem a little bit down, or that you haven't come out to as many things, or you seem really stressed. Is there anything you want to talk about? How are things going? Even just simply being like, how is work going? How are all the things in your life going? And ask lots of questions. Don't just make the small talk, but try to go deep and see how they're dealing with things.
So once you've asked a friend how they're doing and they say something to you that indicates they might be having a hard time, there's some really great ways that you can respond to that.
Because if somebody says something to you about their mental health, your first instinct might be feel really uncomfortable, and you're like, oh, what do I say to you? You just dropped this bomb on me. Why did I even ask? I'm not qualified.
I didn't take the test. I didn't take the program. I don't know what to do.
But you're qualified. We promise you. And we have some really, really good phrases that you can say that we use in clinical psychology, counseling psychology, that make people feel very validated and feel really comfortable to talk about things that are really hard for them to talk about.
Because a lot of the time, if someone brings something up that they want to talk to you about, they're not asking for you to give them the answers. They just want to know that you care about them. So you don't need to have the answers. That's like all the weight is off your shoulders. You don't need to solve their problems. All you need to do is show them that you care and validate their experience.
Because a big impulse is to, hey, I care about this person. Let me
fix it.
Yeah, I don't want you to be sad or anxious anymore. I'll fix it.
Yeah.
But this is maybe one of the worst things you can do. Unless they want you to help solve their problem, like Kaylee said, they just want you to listen. So just sit there quietly in your uncomfortable ocean of emotion yourself and do these things.
Yes.
First, saying something like, wow, that sounds so difficult. Or thank you for telling me. That must have been really hard for you to say. Thank you so much. And you can own it if you're feeling really uncomfortable. Be like, I've never struggled with that, or I'm not quite sure what to say. Can you tell me more about that? I'm here to listen.
Absolutely, absolutely. And probably the biggest thing that Vanessa just said that you can say to somebody is like, wow, it means so much to me that you told me about that. Because it's hard for people to bring up these things. So if they've given you the honor of like talking to you about a hard time they're having, that's really awesome.
And just recognize how courageous they had to be to tell you that. And a big thing is less about exactly the words that you use, but how you say that with your body language and your voice and your tone. And so we want to kind of show you what does it look like to support and validate some of these feelings, not just through the words that we use, but through our body language.
Yes. And this one's tricky because we often are aware of the words that are streaming out of our mouths, but we are often not aware of what we're doing with our gangly limbs.
Example 1, don't do this.
Vanessa, I really want to talk to you about this really hard thing that happened to me the other day.
Oh, fuck. I'm sure you'll be fine. You'll just figure it out. I gotta go. How do you think Kaylee feels?
I just lost a friend. Defriended.
Like shit.
All right, take number 2. Man, I'm so glad you came here today because I've been wanting to talk to you for a while. I've been having such a hard time.
What's going on? I didn't know.
I feel so overwhelmed with school and like my relationships, and I'm just like, everything just feels like too much right now.
Oh my goodness.
Don't laugh at them if they tell you that.
Wow, that must be so hard. Can you tell me more about it?
I could. Yeah. Sweaty hands. So there are some really key things you should be aware of about your body language when someone's about to have a serious conversation with you. To be fair, this goes for all serious conversations, so this is true for mental health conversations, but also pretty much any conversation that you want to be taken seriously in. Side note, bring it back in. Tip number 1, face the person you're talking to. A really key thing about body language is that when we're turned away from somebody, it just like automatically tells them that we don't want to talk to them about whatever it is. So if the person's facing you, like don't, kind of like, this is weird. Like don't look at them like this.
Yeah.
Turn your body to them, like have a conversation with them.
The second thing, this is poison. This is poison.
Yes.
This takes up all of your attention. If you're on your phone, if you're checking your emails, and if you're like scrolling through Insta, then you're not paying attention to that person.
Absolutely. And you're basically just saying, what you're saying does not interest me. I have to entertain myself some other way.
Yeah, there's this raccoon that's doing something funny, but like, what? You have anxiety? Shh. So put that phone away. I know it's hard. Just put it away, face that person, listen.
Absolutely. And if you know there's an important phone call or something coming in, just tell the person, hey, I care so much what you're saying right now. I have to check this one thing. I'll be right back with you in like 2 seconds.
And also pay attention to what your face is doing. Don't furrow your brow because you're trying to understand them, or don't look aghast and be like, don't look like you're about to just like flee out of the situation. Even you might be feeling a lot of emotions, but like nod and validate. If you wanted to look at something else, there's a super cool dude called Carl Rogers, and he's the master at this. And watch his body language. It's open, it's warm, and it's compassionate, and you would tell your deepest, darkest secrets to that man.
Whether you want to or not.
Exactly. So, let's hear him.
So now that we've covered how to ask somebody about their mental health problems, we also need to tell you how you can bring up the conversation if you're having a hard time yourself. A big thing that Vanessa and I have been talking about recently is how it's so hard to bring up these conversations because we just assume that everyone else is having this perfect, wonderful life. Because we don't often hear about people having a hard time, because people often start talking about it, we kind of assume that if we're struggling, then we're the only ones and we're weird.
Yeah, and it's our fault that we're weak. We're just not being able to deal with the situations. We blame ourselves instead of blaming all of the stress that's going on in our lives. Talking about your own mental health is similar to talking about other people's mental health. There's ways to bring it up that makes it a little bit easier. Sometimes you can just bring it up by talking about another experience. So you could say something like, you know, my friend is going through depression. Have you ever gone through that? I think I've been sad at one point in my life. You can start really general.
Another way to bring it up is just to ask someone if it's okay to talk to them about something a little bit hard. So you can just say like, you know what, I've been having a really hard time. Do you mind just talking to me for a little bit about how I've been feeling? That might be a little bit hard because it's not the kind of conversation we typically have with our friends. And I feel like I said before, we like to think of ourselves as these happy people because we assume everyone else is happy and out having the time of our lives. But we need to recognize when we need support. We need to kind of recognize when the things that are happening in our lives are kind of tipping us over the scales of like, I can handle it, I can handle it, I can handle it. I'm starting to struggle. Okay, you know what? Nope, I cannot handle this anymore. And that's when you need to engage your supports. You need to find the people in your life that care about you and give them a chance to support you through this hard time.
Also, we're really worried that, how do I bring this up into a conversation? And I think this ties really nicely with Kaylee, that sometimes there isn't a really easy way to bring it up. So you have to say something like, hey, I have something hard to talk to you about, or something that I feel really uncomfortable about. Do you mind listening? And that's the best segue into it. If you have to wait for the perfect mental health moment for someone to be like, hey, do you want to talk about your mental health? Like, based on our experience, it's probably not going to happen. Maybe moving forward now because we've educated all the people. But sometimes you just have to be like, hey, let's talk about this thing.
Yes, exactly.
Also, we want to talk about mental health, not just when the big crises happen, but get used to talking about mental health as it like shows up every day. So let's say you had a really stressful day at work and you just felt so anxious about talking in front of your coworkers or them judging you. We should get used to talking about those little things every day. Because if we can get support from our friends in those little things, then maybe it doesn't lead to the big things.
Absolutely. Remember about that continuum we talked about last week for a really long time. There's this continuum of mental health problems, but there's also just a continuum of triggers of things that make us really upset. So some things bother us a little bit and some things bother us just so much that we can't handle it. So if we can get used to talking about the things that only bother us a little bit, then we'll get better at talking about the things that bother us a lot.
So instead of when somebody says, hey, how was your day at work? Instead of saying, fine, maybe take that opportunity to be like, you know what? It's a pretty crappy day. You want to hear about it? Or just go right into it? Because that's an opportunity that we pass up where we could start talking about our mental health. Is it going to be hard? Definitely.
Yes.
But are you going to be courageous? Sure.
Absolutely. And keep in mind, you don't need to do that for every conversation you have. Maybe try once a week when someone asks you that to say that. Because I think we also have a fear of becoming the person who says a negative thing all the time. So remember that you can try and just, have these conversations once a week with somebody, or try and be balanced. Say, you know what, it was a really great day. All these amazing things happened. There was this one really crappy thing that happened though, and I'm just still really frustrated about it. Blah, blah, blah.
Yep. And we don't have to pick pick one single person to kind of
Yes.
feel like we're dumping all on. We can pick different people, and we also want to pick the right people. You know, somebody we know that's going to respond really well, like my mom. She's always going to respond well when I talk about all my struggles. And so when it's really hard to talk about these things, we want to pick the people who are going to support us best.
The last thing we want to make sure you know when you're having these courageous conversations is that the same way that we need to ask people how best to support them, we need to make sure that people know how best to support us. So if you're really introspective and you know that really what you need from somebody is just to have someone to vent to once a week, tell them that. Be like, hey, would it be okay if once a week we checked in and I just had a chance to vent with you? Alternatively, you can suggest other things that would be really helpful for you.
So you can be like, hey, I need to like blow off some steam. Can you just distract me?
Yeah.
Can you tell me all the funny things and send me all the funny videos?
Yes.
You can do that as well. And remember, these conversations are going to be uncomfortable. But we now know that uncomfortable can be a good thing.
Absolutely. It's a learning experience. So we know that the struggle to talk about mental health and to be mentally healthy is real.
But hopefully after this week, it's a little bit easier.